going on, fight fans? Hey, this is Coach D, the Wild Man, coming at you again with another episode of Coach D Media. Now, you know what I do with Coach D Media. I talk about all things combat sports related, from the highs to the lows. All right, let's go ahead and get back into it. Today, we're going to talk about Francis Ngannou and Cris Cyborg, right? They just won their titles at PFL. What was it called? Battle of the what? Hold on. Battle of the Giants. That's what it was called. I guess because Francis Ngannou was a giant, and so was his opponent, which is Renan Ferreira. All right, let's go ahead and talk about it. So, overall, that whole card was all right. It was nothing to brag about. But that's not what's important, right? What's important is that Francis Ngannou and Cris Cyborg got to stand on their own, make their own history, get their own belts at a promotion that they can go, this is what I'm doing. It's not overshadowed by Dana White. It's not overshadowed by the UFC, because let's look at their history, right? When Cris Cyborg was in the UFC, all she got was flack, right? You know, they looked at her appearance. They, you know, from Joe Rogan to Dana White, they all had something to say. If she didn't do what Dana White wanted, she got blasted, right? She couldn't get the fight she wanted. And when she finally lost to Noon, she was gone, right? She went over there to Bellator, to the PFL, still winning, still getting on top. If you look at her record, outside of Noon's, is pretty much spotless. She beat everybody, right? So why wouldn't she be one of the biggest female champions in the world outside of Ronda Rousey? Ronda Rousey was just famous, right? That don't mean she was the best fighter ever, right? She was just extremely marketable, right? Cris Cyborg wasn't as marketable as anybody else, but she was one of the most dominant champions ever in female combat sports of MMA, right? She beat Larissa Pachenko, who beat Kayla Harrison, who was supposed to be the next Ronda Rousey. Came from the Olympics, judo champion, yada, 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 right? Beating everybody in the PFL until she got to Larissa Pachenko. Then it was a wrap. Then Cris Cyborg bodied Pachenko, right? So, what should that tell you? That Cris Cyborg is one of the best to ever do it, but because of how she looks, she never gets what she deserved. Right? Now, had she been a 10 on the hot scale, she probably would have been one of the biggest stars ever. Right? Because who could beat her? Nobody. Even at 39, who can beat her? Nobody. So does the fight with Nunes supposed to happen? Yes, but Nunes retired. So now what? Who else can she fight to give her a super fight, super iconic fight? It was only Pachenko, and look how that went. Right? So what are you going to do with Cris Cyborg? Right? Because nobody's willing to give her what she's earned. She's earned all this in the cage. She had to beat everybody to be the best. So when you throw somebody at her, she had to beat them. Nobody was willing to give her anything. That's not especially the UFC, right? When Joe Rogan says she had a penis, come on. Does it get any worse than that? From steroids to you name it. Right? But now, she's still on top. She's still winning. Still collecting belts. She's collected the belts in just about every promotion she's ever been in. Who else has done that? I'm talking about male and female. Who else has ever done that? I think she's the only one to have that accolade, to have belts in every major promotion that she's been a part of. I don't think anybody else has done that. As many as she has. Not saying, you know, people who's been in two promotions and won belt in both, but all the promotions, UFC, PFL, Bellator, Strikeforce, who else has done that? So how come we can't give it to her? How come we just can't give it to her? See, that's the question you need to ask ourselves. Know what I'm saying? All right. Now we got Francis Ngannou, right? One of the best stories of the come up from being poor to make it. I don't think there's any better story in the history of sports. Now, we've had some rags to riches stories, right? But who can say they have a better overcome adversity than Francis Ngannou? Right? Was a ditch digger in Africa, literally digging ditches, right? Escaped to France, right? Living on the street, wanted to box, got into MMA, become UFC champion, was able to get out of the UFC unscathed, right? Not, I mean, verbally, right? He wasn't held hostage. He was able to get out of his contract cleanly, go into the open market, have two major boxing events where he made more money than he ever did in the UFC, gets to the PFL, becomes an ambassador for Africa, right? Gets back, has his first MMA match against supposedly the best next big man, right? And Rihanna Ferreira gets knocked out in the first round, right? How is not Francis the best representation of heavyweights ever, right? Now, if you're comparing John Jones to Francis Ngannou, right? John Jones is a great fighter, is in the GOAT conversation, but his past and all the crap he's done, he's not the best role model. Francis Ngannou can arguably be one of the best role models on the same level of like a Demetrius Johnson, right? Just a good story of how he became successful in combat sports, right? These guys are finally getting out under the shadow of the UFC. Now, of course, Dana White ain't gonna let Francis Ngannou have a clean win, or Cris Cyborg, right? Because that hate, well, not so much Cris Cyborg, because he pretty much cut Cris Cyborg, right? But Francis Ngannou got away from Dana White in the UFC, right? Now they got belts in other promotions. There's two huge stars, right? Let's hope they can truly get what they deserve out of this sport. But they're doing better than most. All the ones who are still being held hostage by the UFC, right? They don't got the freedom to do nothing. They can't go box if they want to. Francis Ngannou can. Cris Cyborg can. Nobody in UFC can. Unless Dana White gets the lion's share of the money or controlling all aspects of the promotion, marketing, whatever, right? They got the freedom to do both, MMA and boxing. You can't beat it. Even if they don't make boxing money, millions and millions and millions of dollars, right? Just the freedom to do your own thing, to box or MMA, just because you want to, without somebody telling you can't, right? If you do something they don't like, they crucify your name in social media, right? They're their own people, which is all fighters want, is to be their own people, to be able to do what they want to do in combat sports without tarnishing their name or being ostracized or being put on the shelf, right? They get to compete, which is all they really want to do. Well, all any fighter wants to do is be able to compete to prove how good they are in whatever combat sport they choose to do it without being held hostage. That's it. Simple as that. And that's what Francis Ngannou and Cris Cyborg has done. They've got out from under the shadow of the UFC. Congratulations. That's what I'm talking about. That's all I got. I just want to get that out there. It's a feel-good story from Coach D. It is what it is. This is Coach D doing what I'm doing, calling it like I see it. To hear from me again, peace out.